Revealed. Millionaire's heartwarming test of Fiancée leads to hidden. Amazing transformation to Jake. The self-made millionaire from the gritty streets of Chicago stood at the crossroads of love and reality. The bells of the city rang, a cacophony of joyous laughter and the raw hum of life. But amidst planning his luxury wedding to Lisa, a devoted school teacher from a polished suburb, a sliver of anxiety gnawed at his heart. How had he bridged the chasm between their worlds? Their love radiated like the sun, but would it survive the storm of their contrasting backgrounds? Taking a deep breath, he proposed a bold experiment. Let us spend a month in my old neighborhood. It was a challenge to step back into the economic struggles he deemed known but fought to escape, a place pulsing with resilience, yet laden with memories of hardship. Lisa's blue eyes widened. "You mean live there?" she asked, curiosity replacing hesitation. That sparkle of commitment fueled Jake. He saw a chance to truly know each other beyond the layers of privilege and ambition. Packing up their lives like a whirlwind, Jake and Lisa found themselves in a small apartment surrounded by familiar faces. The echoes of laughter and struggle filled the hallways, draping a nostalgic warmth over Jake. But then there was Lisa, stepping into this raw world, a school teacher ready to embrace change, yet cast under the watchful gaze of her affluent family. They whispered about her abandoning not just her comfort, but her very identity. Jake felt the pang of guilt striking him every time Lisa faced the judgment from her loved ones, as they began to volunteer at local shelters, navigating a world filled with stories of loss and hope. Jake rediscovered his community while Lisa grappled with her own fears of losing her past. They shook hands with resilience and hugged hearts riddled with pain, each moment reshaping them gently like the molding clay of life. Yet, something was off. As Jake's old friends questionably eyed him from afar, he felt a rift growing. "You're different now, man," they say with a smirk. And in those words, the weight of judgment felt heavy, as Lisa's circle whispered about her downward spiral into the gritty life they thought they'd escaped. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Then, out of nowhere, tragedy struck. The buzzing life around them dimmed when an unexpected fire ripped through a nearby block, displacing families Jake had known forever. Suddenly, they found themselves at the center of the chaos, neighbors uniting to combat despair. In the face of urgency, Jake and Lisa sprang into action, channeling their resources to help those in need. It was as if the flames melted away their fears, revealing raw character beneath the surface. As they worked side by side in the makeshift community kitchen, they began to understand the power of solidarity. Each story shared resonated, igniting realization what really mattered was not where they came from, but where they were going together. In each consequence of their choices hung the weight of decisions yet to be crystallized, echoing louder than sirens fading into the night. Just as they felt momentum growing towards unity, Jake turned to Lisa, eyes wide. Raw. What if the real test is just beginning? The charged air hung heavy with questions, and the night illuminated the stark reality ahead. Would love alone be enough to withstand the pressures of a world constantly pulling at them from both sides? In the days following the fire, the community buzzed with unfamiliar energy. Neighbors who once exchanged polite nods now embraced each other, weaving a fabric of support that was as strong as it was surprising. Jake felt alive in this moment, his heart swelling with pride as he witnessed the resilience surrounding him. But as he looked over at Lisa, working tirelessly beside him, he sensed her spirit waning. "Jake, I don't know if I can keep this up," she admitted quietly one evening, her hands stained with flour and sweat from hours of cooking. "I'm fighting to belong, but I feel like I'm losing myself." He gently wiped his hands on a towel, and studied her, noting the flicker of doubt in her eyes. It was barely there, but it was enough to make his heart ache. He stepped closer, the aroma of spices swirling between them as he wrapped his arms around her. "You're not losing yourself, Lisa. You're just discovering new parts of you." But even as he said it, Jake wrestled with his own doubts. Was this really the path to a future together? Or were they just two ships passing in a fog of chaos, too afraid to chart their course ahead? They spent their evenings in the community center, organizing supplies and sorting through donations. The warmth radiating from their new friends began to melt away Lisa's worries, even if just a little. The laughter of children, the gratitude in the eyes of those they helped, began to carve small constellations of joy in their hearts. Yet, shadows lingered in the corners. Judgment from both their families weighed heavily on their shoulders. One night, after a long day of service, they returned to their modest apartment, exhaustion hanging around them like a heavy blanket. Jake poured them each a glass of water, watching Lisa as she leaned against the wall, window light framing her silhouette. "What if tomorrow someone asks us why we did this? Why we chose to be here instead of the other side of the city?" Her voice trembled with an edge of uncertainty. "Then we tell them the truth," he replied, a determined glint in his eyes. "That this is where our hearts are." Yet as he spoke, doubt crept in. Would that be enough? The next day, they were met at the shelter by the news team. Cameras, lights, and voices echoed around them, and Lisa, thrown into the spotlight, suddenly looked small and vulnerable. She hesitated, eyes darting between Jake and the cameras. "Just speak from the heart," Jake whispered. But when the reporter asked about their experience, Lisa stumbled. "I just wanted to understand." Her voice trailed off, the weight of expectation crushing her. The words she wanted to say hung like fruit just out of reach. Jake felt a pang of frustration. This wasn't tea, just an interview. This was them, who they were becoming. "What if we show them?" He blurted out, suddenly resolute. "What do you mean?" Lisa looked at him, confused. "Let us gather everyone, this community, let them tell their stories. It's not just about us anymore." His pulse quickened with the idea. If they shared, if people really saw the heart of their neighborhood, the struggles, the victories, perhaps it would bridge the divide they both felt. Lisa's eyes softened with understanding. "You're right. It's not just about us." As they spent the following days organizing the community for the upcoming event, they watched as bonds deepened and relationships flourished. They felt the thrill of possibility light up their souls. But excitement twisted with unease. What if the stories revealed more than they could bear? On the night of the gathering, the energy was electric. The room buzzed with voices, laughter, and hope. Standing before the crowd, emotions swelled inside Jake. The moment felt pivotal. But as they prepared to begin, a loud crash echoed from outside, shattering the excitement and the fragile peace they had fought so hard to build. "What was that?" Lisa asked, her voice trembling as uncertainty clawed back into their lives. Jake's chest tightened, knowing that everything they worked for could very well hang in the balance. What if this wasn't tea, just noise? What if it was a warning? If things were about to change again, would they be able to face it together? The sound of shattering glass resonated in Jake's chest. More than just a noise, it was a message. He scanned the room, searching faces for signs of panic. Lisa stood frozen, her wide eyes reflecting his own uncertainty. "Stay here," he whispered, moving toward the door. She reached out, gripping his arm tightly. Panic was bubbling beneath her calm facade. Don't go alone." Her voice had a sharp edge, slicing through the air between them. With a nod, Jake turned back to the crowd. "Everyone just stay calm." They had come together to share hope and community stories, not to face chaos. Outside, shadows danced in the flickering streetlights as he stepped out into the night. A group had gathered, murmuring frantically, pointing towards the street. Rounding the corner, Jake found the source of the commotion. A fallen lamppost lay sprawled across the road, wires sparking, gleaming like angry teeth in the darkness. Cars honked in protest, but everyone was more worried about the safety of their neighbors. "Someone call the electric company," a voice shouted. The street buzzed with urgency. Jake felt a surge of adrenaline. "We need to clear the area," he called out, motioning to a few nearby people. They rushed over, their faces a blend of concern and determination. As he organized the group, he felt someone's presence beside him. It was Lisa, her breath labored but her resolve steely. "I told you not to go alone." For a moment, gratitude pierced through the chaos. They were a team, like always, and he didn't want to face this without her. "All right, help direct traffic. We can't have anyone getting too close here." She nodded, the fear in her eyes replaced with purpose. As they worked together, the bond they shared rekindled. It wasn't about a community divided. It was about strangers forging connections through shared struggles. And as they faced this obstacle, hope wove itself back into their hearts. Once the chaos began to settle, the electric company arrived. The crowd dispersed slowly, still buzzing with conversation, glancing back at Jake and Lisa. They saw them not just as individuals, but as equals in this moment, a part of their community. That be why the time the crowd returned to the hall, the atmosphere had shifted. Memories of laughter and storytelling mingled with the remnants of fear. The warmth of camaraderie enveloped them all, yet beneath it lingered apprehension. Jake took a deep breath, preparing to speak. What happened out there tonight reminds us that, together, we can face anything. We're not just sharing stories, we're building something stronger than ourselves. A murmur of agreement rippled through the audience, eyes lighting with hope. Lisa stepped forward, her voice steady, despite the echoes of fear lingering in the background. Every story has the power to change us, to connect us. Our struggles and triumphs make us who we are. With that, the event began to unfold. As community members took turns sharing their tales, the room filled with emotion. Each story was laden with vulnerability, revealing hurt, joy, and a determination to heal together. But as Lisa spoke, a fleeting shadow of doubt crossed her features. Could they really pull this off? Would this fragile moment hold when the outside world was filled with chaos? Jake caught her eye, sharing an understanding glance. If an accident could pull people together, what could their stories achieve? As the night deepened, every personal story transformed into a shared one. But as the last tale came to a close and gratitude filled the space, Jake felt it a shudder rippling through the air. An uninvited noise crackled outside like danger lurking just beyond the light. "What now?" Lisa asked under her breath, her earlier courage flickering uncertainly. Jake's heart raced. They had come so far, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the night was only beginning. Looking toward the door, he knew he needed to find out what was happening. "I'll check it out." "Let me come with you," she insisted. "No, stay here. Keep everyone calm." As he stepped into the uncertain dark, a question echoed in his mind. Was this new challenge a test of everything they had built, or was something much darker, out in the night, something waited just beyond the shadows? Jake stepped into the darkness, the air thickening around him as he moved away from the warmth of the gathering. Shadows bent and twisted, leaving him uneasy. He could feel the beat of his heart quicken with each step he took. The streetlights flickered above, sending strange shapes dancing along the pavement. He squinted, trying to make sense of the chaos. In the distance, he could hear muffled shouts, a mixture of anger and fear rising above the usual nighttime sounds. The streets, once familiar and comforting, now felt ominous. He reached the edge of the area near the fallen lamppost, where scattered remnants of the crowd lingered, unsure whether to flee or stand their ground. Just as he was about to call out to them, a figure emerged from the thickening shadows, a familiar face, frowning with purpose. It was Tom, one of the town's firefighters. "What is happening?" Jake asked, his urgency evident. Tom adjusted his cap, glancing back at the darkness. "We've got a situation. A couple of down power lines. They're sparking and igniting in some brush nearby. We need to keep people clear until we can get it under control." Panic clawed at Jake's insides. "Can we help? Is there something we can do?" Tom shook his head. "Best to let the professionals handle this. It's spreading fast. Just keep an eye on things, and make sure the crowd doesn't come back this way." Jake nodded tautly, feeling the weight of responsibility. All right, I'll make sure no one crosses the perimeter. As he hurried back toward the hall, he caught sight of Lisa standing just outside the door, scanning the darkness with a worried frown. Their eyes met, and he felt the tension between them. She sensed the danger, too. "Everyone okay in there?" he called out, trying to put on a brave face. "They're anxious," Lisa replied, crossing her arms defensively. "What's going on?" He took a breath, choosing his words carefully. "The wires are sparking. It's not safe, and the firefighters are on their way. We need to keep people in." He watched as fear flickered in her gaze, but was replaced by determined resolve. "I'll help. Let's make sure no one goes outside." Together, they formed a line at the entrance, their presence a barrier against the unknown. As they turned away from the door, Jake noticed subtle shifts in Lisa's demeanor. The fear was still there, but so was something else, a fierce determination to protect their community, to keep it together. "We can do this," she said softly, her tone more bright than it had been. "If we can direct everyone's energy, if we share our stories, unite, maybe we can keep the anxiety at bay." Jake nodded, grateful for her unwavering spirit. "You're right. Let us turn this energy into something positive." Lisa went back inside, her confidence starting to spread. One by one, community members began to gather again, their collective face reflecting concern but also resilience. "Let us focus on what we can control," Jake called out to them all. "Share stories, share support. Let us remember why we came together tonight." As voices rose and stories began to spill forth once more, Jake felt the air shift. There was something beautiful in their shared memories, something that lightened the weight of dread. But just as they began to settle, a loud crack echoed, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. Jake's heart pounded as he exchanged glances with Lisa. This was more than a test of their community's strength. It was an invitation to confront the darkness head-on. "What was that?" someone shouted from the back. "I don't know," Jake admitted, uncertainty creeping into his voice. The tension spiraled around them as fear mingled with anticipation. But deep down, Jake felt the undeniable urge to stand firm. Together, they would face whatever awaited, what lay just beyond that chaos. Would they find a way to hold on to their unity, or would the night tear them apart? Jake's heart raced as the noise faded, swallowed by the gaping silence that followed. He could sense the ripple of anxiety wash through the group. Eyes darted nervously, murmurs growing softer and more frantic. The crack had felt like a heartbeat of the night, an ominous reminder of their vulnerability. "Listen," Jake raised his voice, trying to reclaim their focus. "Let us not panic. We're together. We can keep each other calm." Next to him, Lisa squared her shoulders, her eyes locking onto Jake with a pleading hope. "What do we do next?" "We need to reassure them," she whispered, urgency tightening her expression. Jake took a deep breath, then nodded. "Right? Let us get everyone gathered in a circle. We can share our memories, but also our plans. If we all face the unknown together, we stand a chance." Together, they moved to the center of the hall. "If you've got a story to share, please come forward. Let us remind ourselves of who we are," he called out, hoping to spark courage within the crowd. He felt the weight of their gaze, a mix of fear and expectation. Slowly, a middle-aged man stepped up. "I remember the summer picnic last year. We all laughed when Max slipped into the fountain." Laughter erupted, a small spark igniting warmth in the cool, tense air. The man continued, weaving together the carefree moments that bound them, each story building a protective wall against fear. Jake watched as Lisa took the lead next, her voice steady and strong. "And don't forget the time we all banded together during that snowstorm, bringing food and blankets to those who couldn't leave their homes. We helped each other, and we'll do it again." People began to share, each voice unfolding tales of resilience, laughter, and community that rang true. As they spoke, Jake felt a rhythm form, a connection that wrapped around them like a comforting embrace. The initial fear began to fade, replaced by a shared determination. He joined in with a story of his own, one about childhood adventures with his friends, moments that defined their small-town-esque spirit. But just as the atmosphere lightened, A more ominous crack split through the air again, this time louder and closer. The ground shook, a hard jolt that knocked the crowd off balance. Whispers turned to gasps, and Jake's stomach dropped. What was coming for them? He glanced around, panic threatening to creep back in, but caught sight of Lisa standing firm. Her face was the picture of resolve, determination radiating as she locked eyes with him. "We're not going to let fear win," she said, breathing steadily. "Right?" Jake echoed. "Stay close, everyone. We won't let anything divide us. We need to stay strong." Before the crowd could respond, shadows flickered unexpectedly at the door. A figure emerged, half lit by the chaos outside. It was Tom again, his expression fierce as he rushed in. "Firefighters are on their way, but we need to quickly move everyone to safety." He scanned the faces, urgency bursting from his words. "What about the sparks? Are we in danger?" A woman shouted, a tremble in her voice. "It's bad. We need to evacuate now." Tom barked. Fear surged once more, threatening to swallow the room whole. Jake felt a surge of adrenaline. "All right, let us move, everyone. We'll head out together, one step at a time. Stay close to one another. No one gets left behind." He clasped Lisa's hand tightly, feeling the warmth of her grip, grounding him amidst the storm of chaos. Together, they began to usher the crowd toward the exit, hearts racing, minds focused. Would they stand firm as a community and face what lay outside, or would everything they built unravel in an instant? As they reached the door, the world beyond it crackled with uncertainty. Would they find safety in the chaos, or would the fire consume everything they held dear? Jake flung open the heavy door, its hinges protesting with a shriek that matched the tension within the hall. A gust of wind rushed in, carrying the acrid scent of smoke and the distant echoes of sirens. The street outside was alive, shaken by the chaos, with dark clouds beginning to roil overhead. He stepped over the threshold, dragging Lisa with him, the palpable fear of the crowd pushing them forward. "Stay together," Jake yelled as the frightened families condensed into a tight cluster, their faces pale and drawn. But amid the panic, Jake felt the flicker of hope igniting inside him. They were alive. They could still rally. The air outside felt surreal. People were flooding the streets, some clutching children while others called out for loved ones. It was a jumble of sounds, sirens blaring, people shouting, tires screeching. Tom led the way into the confusion, his voice rising above the din, directing and shaping the crowd's movement. "Over here, this way." Tom pointed toward the nearest park, a grassy area where families would typically gather for picnics. Jake and Lisa fell in step beside Tom, and he could see more of the community spilling out behind them. Faces twisted and concerned, parents holding hands tightly, teens looking bewildered, seniors leaning on one another for support. The first few steps felt heavy, like they were trudging through molasses. But with every stride, Jake felt the weight lift. Lisa's grip remained firm, a reminder that they were united, woven by the shared fear, but also by the flickers of courage that spread like wildfire among them. They reached the park, where the flickering lights of emergency vehicles illuminated the area. The fire crews were setting up, directing people to gather in a designated safe zone. Jake could see some of his neighbors in the crowd, a mixture of familiar faces and strangers huddled together, mutual fear written across their brows. But then, just beside him, a little girl gasped and pointed skyward. "What is that?" she asked, her voice small, yet cutting through the chaos like a knife. Jake followed her gaze. Above them, flashes of light danced in the sky, intertwining with the dark smoke that climbed higher, shimmering like a terrible, beautiful display of raw power. He felt a blast of fear again. Was something worse about to descend upon them? But next to him, Lisa's voice snapped him back. "We can't focus on that, Jake. We have to keep everyone calm, have to make sure they feel safe," she urged, her voice steady and measured despite the chaos around them. He nodded, taking another deep breath. "All right, let us form another circle. We can talk, share, do anything to take their minds off what is happening." He met her eyes, a flicker of determination igniting between them. They had to be the anchors, their resolve a raft for the hesitant point one by one. They gathered again, much like before, huddling close, sharing stories, memories, laughter attempting to eclipse the distant roar of uncertainty. Jake started sharing a particularly funny story from last summer's block party. The way Max had challenged him to a watermelon seed spitting contest. Just as laughter began to bloom amidst the dark, a wild shout erupted from the perimeter. "Look out! The flames are spreading!" Panic surged once more through the crowd. Hearts hammered, breaths quickened, and the joy they'd begun to cultivate shattered like glass. "Stay calm," Tom shouted, pushing through the crowd. "We need to move back. This way." Jake's heart raced as he looked around. This was their moment. This was where everything changed. "We have to trust each other," he called out, heart pounding in his chest. "Let us make sure everyone is together. We can't lose anyone now." But as they turned to follow Tom, Jake felt a sudden chill run down his spine. There was a path between the trees, a flicker of movement just beyond the edge of their safety zone. It was there, waiting just out of reach. "Is someone out there?" Jake whispered, dread creeping into his voice. But no one answered. "Stay here," he called, stepping toward the shadows, curiosity pulling him forward. His heart raced louder than the chaos behind him as another figure stepped into view. Jake squinted, trying to make out the figure emerging from the shadows. The flickering lights cast strange shapes on the ground, but the outline ahead of him became clearer. It was a man, panting heavily, his clothes singed and tattered. As he stumbled closer, Jake's heart twisted with a mix of fear and concern. "Help, please," the man gasped, his voice hoarse, barely above a whisper. Lisa tugged at Jake's arm, her eyes wide with worry. "We shouldn't be out here alone, Jake. We need to stay with the group." But Jake felt an undeniable pull toward the man. There was something desperate in his gaze, something that spoke louder than the chaos surrounding them. "I can't leave him," he said, instinct taking over. "We need to bring him back." The man looked like he had emerged from a nightmare. He searched Jake's eyes, a flicker of hope mingling with fear. "The fire's coming. People need help. I couldn't tee," his voice broke, and Jake felt the urgency radiating from him. "Hey, you're safe now," Jake replied, stepping closer. He noticed that the man was bruised and trembling. "We'll help you." Just as Jake reached out, he heard Tom's voice over the distant sirens. "Jake, what's going on? We can't risk anyone wandering off." Tom emerged from the crowd, his face etched with worry, but relief flooded it when he spotted the injured man. "We need to get him back with everyone else. They need to know there's still people trapped." Lisa squeezed Jake's arm tighter. "Let us get him out of here." Together, they helped the man back toward the cluster of people. The fear hung thick in the air, wrapped around them like the smoke that still billowed from the burning buildings nearby. But as they neared the safe zone, something struck Jake. It wasn't just the flames threatening to engulf them. It was the realization that this man held fragments of hope within himself, hope that hadn't been extinguished even amidst the hell around them. As they reached the crowd, a murmur spread. "What happened? Is he okay?" Voices chimed in, concern washing over the group like a tide. Jake led the man into the circle, where others surrounded him, offering water, blankets, anything they could find to soothe his fear. "I tried to save them," the man began, his eyes darting about as he shivered. "There were kids trapped inside, but I couldn't get back." His voice cracked, the weight of his failures spilling out into the open air. Jake felt heat rising in his chest. "You did what you could. You're here now, and we need you. Together, we can figure this out. No one else is going to suffer alone." He glanced around at the faces that were slowly starting to listen, lamenting, but also kindling a flicker of resilience that had been drowned by fear. Tom stepped forward. "Everyone, let us listen. We need to come up with a plan to check on those still inside the homes, the businesses, anyone who might still be trapped." "But what if the fire spreads?" Someone in the crowd questioned, fear gripping their voice. Jake took a deep breath. "Then we work together. We move fast, but we stay smart. We have to trust each other. Look around, the community is still here." He gestured broadly, his heart racing with the overwhelming desire to inspire courage. We have each other, and that's our best chance. Just as the crowd started to lean into a collective nod of determination, an ear-splitting crack echoed from the direction of the flames. Everyone froze, the anxiety settling back in as they swung around. "What now?" Lisa whispered, her breath shaky. Then a sudden burst of flames shot up high, illuminating the sky and revealing a horrifying silhouette beneath a figure was caught in the inferno, pleading for help. "Help! Someone!" They yelled, their voice piercing through the night, urgency escalating as panic erupted once more. Jake turned, steeling himself. "We can't leave them there. We have to go." As he moved toward the line of flames, Lisa grabbed his arm, her grip tight. "Jake, wait. It's too dangerous." But he was already running, instinct propelling him forward. "I want to leave anyone behind." "Not now." The crowd's gasps echoed. Behind him as he dove through the flames. Did he have the courage to face this? Would he find the strength he needed both for himself and for the people who looked to him? In that moment, the world around him blurred. All that mattered was the life he could save by taking a risk. Would he be able to reach the person crying out in the chaos? Jake felt the heat licking at his skin as he pushed deeper into the angry blaze. Panic surged around him, the eerie, flickering shadows of the flames casting ghostly figures on the ground. Each step forward felt heavier, but adrenaline fueled his resolve. The cries became louder, clearer. He could almost see the figure outlined against the hellish firelight, struggling, lost in the maelstrom. "Hold on. I'm coming," Jake shouted, his throat dry but his spirit unyielding. He spotted the victim, a woman, clutching a small child against her chest. They were trapped against a wall, smoke swirling thick around them. The child was shocked, tears streaming down her face. But the mother's face was etched with determination and fear. "Please, help us," the woman pleaded, reaching out with trembling arms. Jake pushed through a fiery curtain, agony shining in the heat, but not yet consuming him. "I'm here. I got you." He sprinted towards them, praying the flames didn't inch closer, hoping against hope that he could breach the maelstrom that stood between them. "Jake!" Lisa's voice rang through the chaos, but he couldn't turn back now. She would understand. They all would. He reached the woman and child just as the ceiling cracked, sending embers cascading down. With a surge of resolve, he knelt beside them. "I need you both to trust me. Can you do that?" The woman nodded, tears glistening in the firelight. "You can get us out?" "Absolutely." Jake took a deep breath, steadying himself. "On 3, I'll lift you up. Your daughter first. You follow right after." As he counted, he could feel the flames closing in, their crackling applause a taunt. 1, 2, 3. With a surge of energy, he swept the child into his arms. She was so light, so fragile. He glanced at the mother. Their eyes locked, a silent connection of hope. "Now, let us move." He turned, shielding the child as they made their swift escape through the blaze. The air felt thick as they stumbled through the heat, the world around them melting into a fiery haze. With every step, he could hear the mother's desperate breath behind him, urging him on. "Please hurry," she gasped, fear tainting her voice. "I've got you." Jake reassured her, though his heart raced with doubt. They were so close. Just a little bit farther. They reached the edge of the flames, and suddenly, a tremendous crash echoed above the roof was caving in. Instinct kicked in. With a final sprint, he hurled the child into the waiting arms of the crowd that had gathered outside. "Catch her! Don't let go!" he yelled as he turned back, extending his hand to the mother. Yet before she could take it, a wall of fire rose fiercely where the exit had been. The heat pushed him back, fear flooding through him. "Jake!" Lisa's voice rang in his ears. "You have to get out." "No, I can't leave her," he cried, panic seizing his heart. He held his ground, eyes locked on the terrified woman. "I want to abandon you." But as he reached towards her, the flames surged higher, roiling angrily, threatening to engulf everything. He had to think of a way out. His mind raced, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "There has to be a way," he said, desperation creeping into his voice. The crowd began to shout warnings, an urgency spiraling around him. "Jake, get back. You'll die." Someone screamed, straining to pull him away. "No," he shouted, shaking off their grip. He took in deep breaths, flickers of clarity amidst the chaos. The only way was to find another path. Voices of hope echoed again in his mind what he had said to the crowd about trusting one another. He had to be that part of the solution. Jake looked around, calculating quickly. There had to be a window or some way to lead her out. He turned, scanning for any sign of escape. Just as he thought hope was lost, he caught sight of a narrow gap at the far side, an old window, just wide enough. "Follow me," he yelled toward her, turning back to make sure she understood. Over there, with a nod of understanding, she struggled to inch closer despite the heat. But Jake's heart beat furiously as he caught a glimpse of flames dancing ever closer. Would they make it in time? Uncertainty laced through his thoughts, but he pushed it aside. He had to act. "Come on, we're almost there," he urged, a beacon of hope amidst the flames. But time was running out. He felt the rush of heat behind him threatening to close in, asking the questions rapidly brewing. Would he be their hero or the fleeting flash in their moment of need? Would both make out alive? As he turned again to race to the window, the fire roared, the crackling growing more furious. Each step felt heavier, yet he could feel her urgency chasing close behind. But would they reach it before the flames consumed everything? The answer evaded him as the world blurred into chaos. Jake pushed through the smoke, his heart racing. But the image of the mother and child lit a fire in his soul stronger than the inferno around them. He reached the window, its jagged edges glowing and melting in the fierce heat. "This way," he shouted, gesturing wildly for them to follow. The woman looked at him, fear mingling with the hope that flickered in her eyes. "Will we get out?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Yes," he promised. "I swear, just jump." Heart pounding, he felt the heat of the flames licking at his back as he peered through the window. It was dark outside, but he could make out the crowd below, faces twisted in worry, hands raised in anticipation. Their anxious voices reached him like waves pushing against a shore. "Come on, please," he urged, try to project confidence he didn't feel. The woman struggled, the smoke growing thicker as it swallowed them whole, each breath sharper than the last. "I can't let go of her," she cried, panic in her voice echoing against the roar of the fire. "Just hold tight. Trust me," Jake shouted back. He knew they didn't have time. The roof was caving in, and the flames had developed an appetite for destruction. Without waiting for another moment, he climbed closer to the window, reaching his hands out. "I've got you. Just reach for me." The little girl was trembling, tears streaming down her soot-covered cheeks. "Mommy," she cried out, and the sound cut through Jake like a knife. With renewed strength, the mother grabbed the edge of the window, leaning back on her heels while gripping her daughter tightly. "Climb," Jake yelled again. Slowly, she shoved the little girl through the opening, and Jake's heart soared when he caught her small body. He held her tight against his chest, glancing at the mother's desperate face. "Now you." He extended his arm, urgency straining his voice. As the flames split the air with ferocity, the mother pushed herself through with a force of will, diving past the smoldering debris. Jake reached to pull her inside, just as the blaze crackled ominously. "Almost there." With one final surge, she wriggled through, and Jake's heart soared as he wrapped an arm around her waist, swiftly pulling her and her child towards safety, out of the reach of the flames. They stumbled outside together, rolling onto the grass, gasping in fresh air as the crowd erupted in gasps and cheers. But as relief flooded in, Jake's attention wavered back to the blaze, roaring behind them, the heat radiating even from outside. It was the moment he realized how badly he was burned. The flames had licked hungrily at his back. He swallowed hard, the pain suddenly washing over him like a tidal wave. "Is she okay?" the mother cried out, her voice still thick with fear. Jake looked down at the little girl in his arms. She seemed stunned but unharmed, eyes wide and shimmering. "She is safe," he said, lungs struggling to pull in air amidst the chaos. Lisa broke through the crowd, running to him with frantic urgency. "Jake, are you okay?" "Just a bit banged up," he rasped, the adrenaline beginning to fade, the pain creeping in like shadows with the night. "Why'd you go back?" she asked, tears glistening in her eyes, mixed with admiration and fear. "I couldn't leave them," Jake whispered, his breath shaky. "Thank you," the mother started, but Jake held up a hand, retreating away from the gathering crowd. As they began to wrap a blanket around him, he felt a pull in his heart towards the mother and child, who were still standing at the periphery, eyes shining with gratitude and disbelief. What would their lives look like now, after such a traumatic experience? Yet amidst it all, hope glimmered in their eyes, the spark of survival after the storm. They were safe, and that was what mattered most. But he couldn't shake the feeling that this moment would change everything for him too. As Jake turned to Lisa, the sirens wailed in the distance, the chaos fading behind him. "What now?" he asked, not just for himself, but for the woman who took strength from him. Would their lives intertwine again in this small town? Would they find healing together? In the distance, the fire burned, but inside Jake, another fire began to flicker, a longing for connection, for understanding amidst the wreckage. What lay beyond this moment? What awaited in the shadows of tomorrow? As the sirens dwindled, the chaos began to morph into something more significant, a chance for healing, connection, and resilience. Jake sat on the grass, a blanket wrapped around him, his heart pounding as he watched the firefighters battle the flames still raging in the distance. He felt Lisa's hand resting on his shoulder, a silent reassurance amidst the swirling chaos. Her eyes shimmered with admiration, and a small smile crept onto her tired face. "You did something incredible tonight," she said softly, squeezing his shoulder. He turned to meet her gaze and found comfort in the depth of her eyes. "You saved them," she added, tears mingling with the remnants of ash on her cheeks. "Yeah, but it doesn't feel finished," he admitted, glancing back towards the crowd where the mother and child sat wrapped in each other's arms, taking in the enormity of what just happened. The little girl clutched a teddy bear, identifying nothing more than a frayed remnant of childhood amidst the uncertainty of tomorrow. Jake's heart swelled with a sense of duty. We need to help them. They might have lost everything tonight. It felt vital to reach out to ensure their safety didn't end with mere survival. "I know," Lisa replied, her voice steady. "Let us do this together." They moved toward the mother and daughter, drawn to the spark of fireworks still glowing in the eyes of those who had faced the brink. "Hey," Jake said gently, kneeling down so he was eye level with the little girl. "What is your name?" "Emma," she whispered, her voice barely a thread, laced with remnants of fear. "Emma, well, you were so brave tonight. You helped your mom keep safe. That is a very big job." Emma nodded, clutching her teddy bear tightly. The mother, brushing away tears, met Jake's gaze with deep gratitude. "Thank you for getting us out." The weight of her words settled heavily in the air. "You all were in there, fighting against it too," Jake replied, heartening himself. "We just need to stay strong together." In that moment, he could feel the invisible thread weaving through their connected souls, glimmering with hope. Lisa knelt beside him, offering a warm smile. "We'd like to help you. Whatever you need." The woman hesitated at first, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. "I don't know what to do. We lost everything." Jake exchanged a glance with Lisa, her confidence steadying him. "First, let us focus on tonight. Do you know anyone who can help? Family, friends?" "Yes, my sister," the woman replied, voice breaking. "She lives nearby. I just need to call her." "Let us find a place with some quiet," Lisa suggested. "We can help you make that call." Together, they guided the weary family toward a safer distance from the chaos, bringing them to a corner of the park where a small group of neighbors collected anxiously as the conversations buzzed around them. Jake and Lisa could already feel the unity blossoming. They weren't just strangers in a crisis. They were a community, intertwining their stories and embracing each other as hopes. Soon, with the help of their neighbors, the woman found her sister, who rushed in, arms wide open. They enveloped Emma and their mother, tears streaming with the weight of relief. Jake watched as that loving embrace ignited hope, feeling that warmth radiate through the park. Hours drifted by as support flourished, blankets were shared, and food was organized. As the stars blanketed the sky, a soft hush fell over the crowd, warmed by a sense of togetherness and shared purpose. "Jake, look," Lisa said, her voice breaking the silence as she pointed toward the group gathered around the family. "This is why we did it. Look at them. They made it through," Jake replied. "They're all part of something bigger." He felt a sense of pride rise within him. They had stepped outside their comfort zones, risking it all for the people they barely knew. And in return, they had forged connections neither could have anticipated. Later that night, just after the chaos of the fire had settled, he found Lisa sitting on the grass, looking out at their neighbors, laughter weaving through the air like a childhood memory. "What if we start something?" he asked, feeling a flutter of inspiration. "Like what?" she replied, tilting her head thoughtfully, eyes glowing with possibility. "A community fund, to help those who lost everything tonight. We can help them rebuild." Lisa beamed, her smile radiant under the moon's soft glow. "I love that idea. We can use the money from your friends, our resources. Everyone deserves a second chance." At that moment, the weight of their contrasting worlds seemed to dissolve into a blanket of shared purpose. "Together, we can make a difference," Jake said confidently. "Yes," Lisa exclaimed, animated. "We'll speak to everyone tomorrow and get our friends to pitch in. I know it will grow into something amazing." And within that moment, the spark of love and unity flared within Jake. He wasn't just building a future for Lisa and himself. They were building something with heart, rooted in the strength of their community. The future didn't seem so uncertain anymore. They had weathered the chaos, and they would rise, united as the night wrapped its arms around them. Jake felt Lisa's warmth against the chill. They shared a silent promise, eyes locked, a deep understanding of their purpose. Love had shaped them, igniting a fierce fire that would continue to burn through whatever lay ahead. Together, they clutched hands, knowing all too well that their lives were forever transformed. Amidst loss and chaos, they had discovered life, at its core, thrived in connection, courage, and unwavering love. And tomorrow, they would step into that bright new beginning. Now it's your turn. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for heartwarming narratives. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. I want to hear what you think. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us create a movement of love and resilience together.